All right, I think that's it. I think that's us. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This session is going to be Common Concerns. We're going to have an admin forum today. Thank you for everybody for joining us. Quick little introduction. My name is Steve Boisvord. I'm a knowledge-aware consultant with Auros Knowledge Systems. Give you a little background on why we're even having this session. So if you've gone to any of the previous sessions, you've seen Amy ask you for your feedback. So some of the feedback we get having a virtual conferences from last year, that there really wasn't an opportunity to interact with some of the technical experts to get their insight on how they were able to overcome some challenges in regards to applying the knowledge-aware process. So to address that, we compiled a panel of experts, and I'm going to introduce our experts today. So our first expert, she has over 34 years of experience at General Motors. She's currently the engineering group manager for knowledge management, and it's a position that she's held for the past 12 years. We have Miss Wendy Lang. Next, he's been at Ford Motor Company for 39 years, primarily in research and advanced manufacturing. He's currently the technical leader for digital engineering, and he's my former supervisor, Mr. Gene Kaufman. And last but not least, he's been implementing the knowledge-aware process at Navistar since 2013. He's currently the chief engineer for product development, planning, and operations, Mr. Jeff Mayhew. Thank you so much for being here. So let's kind of get into it. So today's format, like I mentioned, we had some feedback from last year, and there's a lot of questions that we compiled, and we kind of boiled those down into some main topics. So what I want to do is I'm going to ask each of you a question, and I'm going to kind of vary who gets to answer the question first. After the first person answers that question, we'll go on and we'll ask another panelist to give their take on that same question. So kind of get into it. Kind of a little background here. So with our first question, this knowledge-aware process, going from that library model that Jeff talked about into this dynamic, more active environment in the creation of knowledge packets just seems like such a challenge to a lot of organizations that are getting introduced to this concept. So for this first question, I'm going to ask Wendy, how are you able to overcome the problem of creating K-Packs? Was it even a problem? And if so, what did you do to overcome that problem?
So when we first implemented Auros, just about almost exactly 11 years ago, we were coming from another system that had knowledge in it, and we were able to migrate a lot of that knowledge. So we started out with some information that people could see in the new format to at least get used to. And then as they started editing what was there and getting used to working with it, that helped them to get used to the idea of K-Packs and creating K-Packs. And over time, people as they get used to the system, that helps. And having some information there to start helps. And the other thing we find is very helpful is the ability to bulk create K-Packs with the Excel uploader. Because then we tell people, if you have all this information and you want to get it into K-Packs, all you got to do is put it in an Excel file. Get the right columns with the right data in it, and then we can auto-create your K-Packs to get them started. So that once they're started and they have something to work with, then getting them to create more and grow helps. And we've obviously grown because checking this morning, we're up to a little over 83,000 K-Packs in our instance of Auros. So,
impressive.
But yeah, having that seed information helps.
Excellent. So Jeff, I don't believe Navistar had a system before you went to Auros. So was it a similar situation for you?
No, correct. So I guess, was it a problem to create K-Packs? I guess for that I would say yes and no from two different perspectives. For no, we used a lot of the same material that Jeff Moffat did, explaining the capability of the tool. What is a K-Pack, granular unit of knowledge, something you need to consider during the course of your design process. And it wasn't a problem from the sense that people are, our engineers are smart. We had that stuff written down. We had it written down all over the place. We're able to use the Excel import to get a lot of that material into the system. So from generally explaining the concept and trying to get people started with it, it wasn't an issue. Where it became an issue was regarding like the long-term sustainability of it. And that was where we didn't initially understand or emphasize the use of assessments enough. But once we emphasize the use of assessments, and that gives context to the CAPEX and gives need for the CAPEX in a particular situation. And once people see the two things working together, it was able to take off.
Right. So it really wasn't until they could see that knowledge being shared and being reused that a lot of your technical experts that were contributing didn't really see the need to participate and generate new knowledge packets.
Yep.
So Gene, remember way back when, it's been a long time since, since Oros kind of originated at Ford. Kind of, did you see, I guess, what was your experience? Was it a problem to create knowledge packets in the beginning, or even still now? Is it a problem to create knowledge packets?
So I think usually not, right? I think similar to what Jeff had said, we're adapting a written process. Information is there somewhere. So once you get people to understand what a KPAC is, what an assessment list is, and once you adapt sort of the Ford terminology to the Oros terminology, then it's pretty straightforward, I think, in most cases. We do have a few cases where we sort of trick the system because people just want to use issues, so we have to put some, sort of fake KPACs in so that it can, you have one or two KPACs in the system and do it that way. That's a few of our use cases, but most of them is pretty straightforward.
Excellent. All right, we're going to move on to our second question. So in this day and age, there's all sorts of initiatives, different IT initiatives that go on at organizations all the time. And the second question we got was it a problem to introduce a new engineering tool when new users may see the number of tools overcrowded already? And how did you overcome it? So Gene, I want to ask you that question first, because coming from Ford, there was all sorts of different IT applications that were trying to get rolled out while Auros or E2KS at the time was being rolled out.
Yeah. So I guess I'll answer it both yes and no, right? So there's always a challenge, and I think often we have multiple tools in Ford, different groups using different tools. So sometimes it's easier to consolidate to a new tool than to get one group to convert to the other group's tool. No one wants to switch, right? Because their tool's better. So going to a third party, a new tool, sometimes is easier to get both groups or all three groups to agree than it is to try to consolidate. So in that sense, it's easier. The harder part is we have a lot of management that's driving us to drive everything to a single tool, as opposed to sort of using the best tool for the job. So in those cases, sometimes we have to overcome some challenges there to drive to a single tool when introducing this tool is better for the job. So a little bit of both. The way to overcome it is in my mind, to demonstrate the benefits and demonstrate the ease of use, and ultimately it wins out, right? The best choice wins out. So
hopefully the best choice wins out. Hopefully. So Wendy, did you have the same experience when you deployed Auros inside of General Motors?
Yeah, and we were, like I said, we initially had our small scope of our best practices, so we were going from one tool to another. They hated the current tool, but then again, they didn't like the new tool because it was new, right? Nobody likes new. Nobody likes to have to learn something new. So, you have to get over that hump of the initial learning it, figuring it out. But we've found over the years, once people get in and see it and start using it, and then they start going, oh, well, that would work for this, and that would work for that. And to Gene's point, you can't put everything in the same tool because everything doesn't work in the same tool, right? So we've gotten pretty good over the years at looking at, here's all the great things Oros does. These are the kinds of things Oros would be perfect for. And we've consolidated a lot of things. And then we're to the point of having people coming to us. Oh, hey, we've got this idea, this process. We want to move it in Auros. we evaluate it, we say, oh, yep, that's a perfect fit, or maybe not. So I think the key, though, is, as Jean said, showing the benefit. And as we've started really using the assessments a lot more, and that helps to improve our KPACs and get more people using the tool and seeing the real value that it brings, especially when they can do that read across and go back and say, we've evaluated the same KPAC against 15 vehicle programs, and here's all the stuff we learned in one place. That has a lot of value. So
Excellent.
I think
Now, before I get to
showing
you,
the value.
sorry, before I get to you, Jeff, kind of going back to Jean and Wendy. So, from my recollection, and at least I know from at Ford Motor Company, it was organic growth. It wasn't all the organization adopting this change at one time. So it was little battles that had to be won. So, what is that the same situation for you, Wendy?
Yes.
Yep. And the reason I want to point that out is because I believe it's a different scenario for you, right, Jeff? Where kind of originally it was kind of a big battle, where it was a major change across the organization. So how did you introduce this new tool when there's a lot of tools for all these workflows that were potentially being replaced?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the replacing of tools kind of happened over time. When we really started looking at the features of Oros, there weren't a lot of other competition. It's not like Oros conflicted with the other enterprise knowledge management databases that let you granular define your knowledge and put it in the flow of work. We had SharePoints, we had SharePoint forms. We had an Oracle system that held on to documents. We had a requirements management database that was a homegrown tool. So when you go a little bit at a time and see kind of the overlap between things, we could see that the way we were doing, this particular design review form, or print this out, physically check things and scan it back in as a PDF. Nobody wanted to continue doing that stuff in the long term. So where Oros did conflict in areas that it had close overlap with other tools, ultimately we were able to work those workflows into the Oros tool. And I think it's 3 different systems that we have, legacy ones that we have supplanted so far.
Excellent. So I want to move on to my third question, and then we're going to go to the forum, and we're going to get into some of the comments and questions from the individuals that are watching right now. So my third question, we're going to start off with Jeff, but kind of going back to everyone else. So Jean, I know we started this process early in 2000, like 2004, 2005 timeframe.
Right.
Wendy, you've been working in knowledge management for over 12 years. Jeff, you've been doing the knowledge aware process at Navistar since 2013. So one of the questions we often get is, how long does it really take for people to grasp this concept, to get it really moving within an organization? So Jeff, you want to take first shot at this one?
I can. I'll be really interested to hear what Jean and Wendy have to say, because my answer for this one is the way the question was worded. I reject the premise of the question. So originally it said, how long does it take people to grasp it? So I don't think of the org as like a static set of people, and I don't think of grasp as kind of like an on-off kind of thing. Like Josh and Jeff showed in the earlier stuff, it's all kind of a journey. So really, Oros is not like a time card system that you're going to buy and install and train people on. They're just going to start using it. And when the IT tickets drop down to a manageable level, people have grasped it, right? It's really about, and the other thing when it comes to people, it occurred to me, is kind of the general technology adoption curve of innovators versus early majority versus, the rest of the people that are along for the ride in the organization. So to me, it's not a question of, do people in my organization get it or not? It's, how are my projects going? Are we selecting the right projects? Do we have the right people? And are things being successful enough to where we're kind of adjusting the metrics over time as things change?
Excellent. So Gene, how would you answer that question? How long did it take people to grasp the concept?
Yeah, so I think it's the people were pretty quick to grasp the concept and to use the tool. I think pretty intuitive, pretty straightforward. And we have at Ford we have quite a range of users. We We have plant applications, and we have a lot of engineering applications using Auros. So we cover a lot of people, and they grasp it pretty quickly. I think the challenge is when they go beyond, the basics, right? How to get them to grasp things. Have more trouble with people who, they're in the middle of doing an assessment and they walk off to do another job, and then they come back and it's timed out. And how do they get back to the assessment? How do they complete the workflow? How do they, how do they do some of the not the unusual steps and kind of learning the power of the system? If you're talking about the engineers and stuff, what else they can do. So I think we have more challenges. We have more questions with how to, how to do the unusual things or the powerful things Oros can do, versus the straightforward stuff is pretty easy to grasp in my view and in our experience.
And Wendy, do you have a similar experience at General Motors?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the straightforward stuff, people figure it out pretty quick. They can get their job done. But it also just really amazes me, the creativity of people and the things they come to us with. And Christine Brasso, who's really the brains behind our Oros installation, gets these every day of, hey, we got this great idea. We think, and we listen to them, and it's like, wow, that's a really creative use for the tool. And these visionary people really are your kind of change leaders, want to help them out because they see these great ideas and how it can really benefit people. And then they help others understand how some of these more complicated parts of it work. But the basics, I think people get pretty quickly.
All right. Well, those were the three primary questions that we got from a collection of questions from last year's conference. So what I'd like to do with the last 7 minutes or so is open it up to questions from the audience. And we have some comments already. The first one is from Alexander Libert. And he's asking, how many K-Packs do you have at General Motors, Wendy? I believe you answered it, but if you wouldn't mind answering it again.
Yep, no, and I typed it in there. It's over 83,000.
Yeah, it's impressive. The next one is again from Alexander. He says, never change a running system. How do you accomplish to convince people that a system can run faster using Auros?
I think we generally see that it's something that people have problems with the system to begin with, and they don't like it, and they want something new. Or the current tool is all outdated technology and just doesn't give them what they're looking for.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar, Steve. That a lot of our new applications are a piece of old technology that's end of life, and you either got to make a major investment to upgrade it or move to something new. So it's that. So then that's a good time to evaluate Oros of whether it'll fit the job or not, right? So
right. All right, let's see what we have here. From Adriana McKenzie, Wendy Jean. How long has the company been using Auros, and what are the main challenges or positive impacts you can see in the organization?
The first part of that's easy. Ford was the first customer of Oros, and so we've been using it for as long as it's existed.
Yep.
As Steve knows, we started with our manufacturing design specifications and incorporated those into Oros first, and then expanded from there as we added similar work with our product design specifications, our digital or virtual assembly type assessments, and then expanded from there to plant usage and even broader usage beyond that. The positive impact, I think, has been having, getting away from Excel spreadsheets and shipping files and documents first by email and then later by SharePoints, right? So it's not documents, it's information is there, and if you know how to get it, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I remember working in the tool when I was there around the 2004 timeframe, and it already existed within Ford before that. So
Yeah.
it had to be late 2003 or sometime in 2003, 2004 that it was introduced into the Ford
Right.
culture. And when did you start working with
Yeah.
Oros?
So we started working with Auros, the predecessors probably started working with Auros about 2005, but our actual first implementation was 2010. So October of 2010. So it literally has been almost exactly 11 years. And I think really as people start seeing the assessments again are the key. When they start seeing their KPACs in use and people actually learning from them and they're learning, there's that conversation that can happen back and forth right within the assessment and within the KPACs with the discussion functionality where you get into a tell peer review where they're going through these assessments and they say, I couldn't really answer whether I meet this or not because you didn't write it clearly enough. And Nicole Nicholas is probably one of our lead people here on. Okay, well, what do I need to tell you so you can understand what I want? And then they're revising their KPEX all the time based on the user feedback to make sure we're conveying the information clearly so that people know what we're asking of them. And I think that has a direct impact on product quality.
Agreed. And actually, from my experience when I was working with Gene and that at Ford, one of the benefits I saw is it really increased that communication across the different teams, like manufacturing to product development and to service, and all these organizations now kind of understood the other organization's needs a lot better, and it just increased that communication. And not to leave you out, Jeff, when did you start using?
Go ahead, Wendy.
I was going to say tomorrow you hear from our manufacturing expert, Susan, on that part of our company, but go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So for us, I would echo some of the same things, over the last eight years. I think some of the biggest value, I think, is in kind of knock-on effects from implementing the system, like encouraging collaboration, encouraging people to be precise in what the design rules are, what the checks are. Don't just have it over here in a big document. Let's break it down. Let me try to actually use it. And it's amazing what you find when you write something down and try to give it to somebody to answer it and see how they answer it, or how many times it doesn't apply and you thought it did apply, that kind of thing. It's just really, to me, kind of table stakes for getting stuff documented and continuously improving it is having it in KPACs and doing assessments with it.
Agreed. So I have another question over here for you, Wendy. Is that a committee that was formed to evaluate new uses for Oros at GM? And if so, how is it made up for those to evaluate the ideas?
So the committee is Christine and I, and basically we just sit down with people and they tell us their use case and we tell them how we think the tool could work for them. And because we have process owners for all the different areas. So whoever owns the process comes to us, tells us what they're looking for. We show them what it could look like and they decide if they want to proceed or not. So it's basically how much work we want to sign up for getting them set up once they make a decision.
So Gene, how does new use cases get implemented at Ford? What type of review process do you have in place?
So as you may recall, Steve, we have the Oros, or its previous name, governance team.
Yep.
That's made up that I lead the team, and we have representatives from the different user groups, and we review new requests, ask people to test it out in our lower environments, one of our QA environments or development environments, and test it out, verify that it'll do the job for them, and then we have a final review. We also use that committee to control, global lists like project lists and extended element lists and things like that. That's used across the different companies. So that when we talk about vehicle programs, every COP calls it the same thing, right? And it's globally aligned, so it's there. So we use the committee to do a variety of things to keep things coordinated. We also then agree on, release dates and things like that for new versions. So we have we have an overall governance team, and so reviewing new users is a part of that governance.
All right. I think that's it. Right? I think we're out of time. So I see that Amy posted in the chat where to enter the survey for this session. I see there's a countdown now, I think, for us to get out of here. I appreciate all your time today, Gene, Wendy, Jeff. I'm sure it's appreciated by all of the attendees today. Thanks for being candid and all your answers. And we'll see you. I think there's some virtual events, networking events that are occurring right after this. So we'll see you in one of those sessions. Thank you all for attending, and thanks again for participating today.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Take
Thanks,
care.
all.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Yes, thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.